Testing, testing, testing. Can someone tell me if they can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Testing, testing, testing. Can someone tell me if they can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
I can hear you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Testing, testing, testing. Can someone tell me if they can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
I can hear you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Is it just my computer? Does the sound seem a little muffled?
It's repeating itself like a recording.
Testing, testing, testing. Can someone tell me if they can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Give me a second, everyone. I'm going to restart my computer.
Good evening.
Thank you. Is it just my computer? Does the sound seem a little muffled?
It's repeating itself like a recording.
He probably has the YouTube on.
Can someone tell me if they
I will text him and tell him he can't have YouTube. He can't watch the YouTube and be in the live YouTube at the same time, or he'll get feedback.
All right, test, test, test. Can someone tell me if they can hear me?
You're good.
Can someone speak again just so I can test
Yeah,
my
this is
audio?
one.
Because it's
It's clear.
Okay, thank you.
We can hear you. No problem.
Well, it's not me. It's when you would speak or when anyone would speak, it was very like muffled. But can you keep saying a few things, Juan, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. It's fine. Yeah, we're trying to figure out maybe somebody had the YouTube channel going or something, and it was because it seemed to be repeating things that we've said before over and over.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you. Iris, did we receive any public speakers for tonight?
There are no public speakers tonight.
Thank you. All right, I see that all the board members are with us now, and we'll begin in approximately 2 minutes. Welcome, everyone, to our special board meeting. We'll begin in about 2 minutes. I think we've had perfect attendance this year, but it is virtual, so perfect attendance and perfect timing. 1 more minute, everyone. We'll begin in 1 minute. I need to learn the blurred background. You too, Trustee Philbeck? All right. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Anaheim Elementary School District December 9 special board meeting. I'm AESD Board President Paulo McAllis, and I call this meeting to order at exactly 5:30 p.m. Now, this meeting is being conducted telephonically and by means of live video broadcast on our Anaheim Elementary YouTube channel for members of the public. Board members and cabinet members will be video conferencing together to assist in managing the logistics of this meeting. For English, you may connect by phone as follows by calling 919-902-5881. And when asked, please type in the PIN 186-842-838 followed by the pound sign. Para español, puede conectarse por teléfono de la siguiente manera. Llame al 402-855-523. Cuando se le pida, presione el PIN 772-016-977 y el símbolo pound. Any member of the public has the opportunity to address the board by submitting comments by 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December 9, 2020, online via an electronic form, as outlined in the public speakers portion of this agenda. Submissions will be read aloud during the board meeting by the board president or designee. Let's go ahead and begin with a roll call. Board member Ryan A. Ruelas.
Here.
Board member Jackie Philbeck.
Here.
Board member Mark A. Lopez.
Present.
Board clerk Wanji Alvarez.
Present.
I'm also present, Board President Paula McAllis. Moving on to item 1B, public speakers for agenda items. There are no public speakers for tonight. Moving on to 2, closed session. The board will now recess to closed session for discussion and or action on the following items. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Relis.
So moved by Trustee Ruelas. Can I get a second?
Second, Lopez.
Seconded by Trustee Lopez. Discussion. Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas.
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Let's go to closed session, everyone. All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Can someone give me a thumbs up if they can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Board
Dr.
President.
Downing? All right, welcome everyone. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Trustee Alvarez. Welcome everyone. We will begin in approximately 1 minute. Chris, do you see Trustee Ruelas? Oh, there he is.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right, let's rock and roll. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Anaheim Elementary School District December 9th special board meeting. I am AESD Board President Paulo McAllis, and I call this meeting to order at exactly 6 p.m. Now, this meeting is being conducted telephonically by means of live video broadcast on our Anaheim Elementary YouTube channel for members of the public. Now, board members and cabinet members will be video conferencing together to assist in managing the logistics of this meeting. For English, you may connect by phone as follows by calling 919-902-5881. When asked, please type in the PIN, which is 186-842-838, followed by the pound sign. Spanish interpretation of the board meeting is available to attendees. Para español, puede conectarse por teléfono de la siguiente manera. Llame al 402-855-5223. Cuando se le pida, presione el PIN 772-016-977 y el símbolo pound. Board members, tonight all voting will be done by roll call vote. When motioning or seconding an item, please state your name. For any items being discussed, please state your name before discussing the item. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and begin with the flag salute. Dr. Downing, can you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Certainly. Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Downing. Moving on to item 3B, introductions and roll call. Board member Ryan A. Ruelas.
Hello.
Board member Jackie Philbeck.
Here.
Board member Mark A. Lopez.
Present.
Board clerk Wanji Alvarez.
Present.
I'm the board president, Paulo McAllis. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Followed by our superintendent, Dr. Christopher Downing.
Good evening, everyone.
Followed by our assistant superintendent of Ed Services, Dr. Mary Grace.
Sorry about that. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Grace. Followed by Dina Mellon, our assistant superintendent of HR.
Good evening.
We also have Jesse Chavarria, our assistant superintendent of administrative services.
Good evening, everyone.
Followed by our senior director of school safety and operations, Tracy Golden.
Good evening, everyone.
We also have Iris Camacho, our senior administrative assistant.
Hi, everybody.
We also have Mary Madrigal and Alina Rogue, our interpreters.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
All All right, followed by Janice Cato, who makes all this possible, our technology assistant.
Good evening, everybody.
All right, good evening, Janice. Moving on to item 3C, report of closed session actions taken. There is nothing to report for tonight. So moving on to 3D, adoption of the agenda. So can I get a motion?
So moved. Relis.
So moved by Trustee Ruelas. Can I get a second?
Second, Philbeck.
Seconded by Trustee Philbeck. Discussion. Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas.
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Board Clerk Alvarez.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Now, before we go into special order of business, know that the first interim report presentation will be posted on the district website, Board of Education page starting tomorrow. Pre-posting presentations have been available for viewing online. So let's move on to 4A. School Reopening Advisory Committee update. Recommendations. Dr. Christopher Downing, our superintendent, Tracy Golden, our senior director of school safety and operations.
Okay, good evening, board members. Yesterday, we convened the School Reopening Advisory Committee to review the preparations being made by the district, review our most recent COVID data, and provide any feedback on a recommended change to our January planned reopening schedule to you, the AESD Board of Education. We will take you through the presentation and address any questions or concerns that you might have this evening. So next slide, please. I'd like to start this evening's presentation by just reviewing some of the stakeholder input that has been garnered as part of our ongoing decision-making process regarding the reopening of our schools for in-person instruction. Next slide, please. As you're aware, we have formed this advisory committee, which contains board member representatives, certificated and classified leadership and staff, administrators, parents, and community partners. And we have had meetings to review safety guidance, receive input from stakeholders, and review reopening options. Next slide, please. This is a summary of the different stakeholder input opportunities, focusing in on the School Reopening Advisory Committee. And on this slide, we've listed the committee meeting dates, as well as the SRAC committee composition. Next slide, please. In addition to the SRAC, we've also conducted parent and staff surveys, met with LCAP and DAC-DLAC leadership, met with our PTA, and we have ongoing meetings with associations to discuss reopening. Next slide, please. And this slide summarizes the different COVID-19 driven communications that have occurred with stakeholders. We shared this slide last month, but as you can see, our numbers of communication continue to grow, and we are very pleased of our collaboration with our associations to review our communications and ensure that we are working together on behalf of our stakeholders. Next slide, please. At this point, board members, I'd like to give you an update on the COVID-19 data that is impacting Anaheim right now. Next slide. First of all, we'd like to remind everyone that the Orange County was part of the different counties that were identified to move from the red tier back to the purple tier. This was driven because on a 7-day average, there were more than 7 new cases per 100,000 citizens. So the criteria to move, again, from the red to the purple was driven by the fact that there were over 7 daily new cases per 100,000 people. This slide shows you that on December 7th, and this is a snapshot, this was one day, on December 7th, there were approximately 91.6 new cases per 100,000 citizens. So that is much higher than 10 times more than the criteria to move to the lowest tier. Next slide, please. This, again, is the criteria. And I would point out, if you look on the left in the second row, substantial. At one point, Orange County fell into this category because there were between 4 and 7 daily new cases per 100,000 people. As I stated earlier, because there are now more than 7 cases, Orange County, along with 27 other counties, reverted back to the lowest tier or purple tier, which is widespread, meaning there are more than 7 daily new cases per 100,000 people. Next slide, please. This shows you the data and the trend data, if you will. And if you look at the graph itself, you will see that this identifies the 7-day average, but it also identifies the number of new cases per 100,000 people from the period of November 2nd through December 7th. And you can see that it's been a consistent rise in the data. It looks like on December 4th, there was a slight decline, but the data has continued to rise over the course of the last week. What I would really like to point out on this slide, if you look on the left, for a long period of time, Orange County fell into the red tier, meaning there were between 4 and 7 daily new cases. On December 7th, it was identified that Orange County has 30.3 new cases on a 7-day average. So again, this is approximately 6 times higher than what the data has been. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown by zip code. And as you can see, in 92801, there are 65.3 new cases per 100,000. 92802, 67.5. 92804, 68.2. 92805, 75.2. And 92806, 64.7. We took a look at the data after December 7th, and board members, it is higher in every single zip code than it was on December 7th. Next slide, please. This shows us a breakdown of children 0 to 17 with confirmed COVID cases. As you can see, Anaheim and Santa Ana are hotspots. On the right, you will see a breakdown by zip code, again, of children 0 to 17 that have had confirmed cases of COVID. In our school reopening advisory committee, we were asked, is it possible to tell which district these children belong to? And I would let the board know that it is not. There is a reporting of the confirmed cases, but at this point in time, it does not identify the district of those students. Suffice it to say, 1,593 growing, with us not conducting in-person instruction, indicates, first of all, that children can contract COVID, and secondly, that our numbers are rising. Next slide, please. So everyone, now that we've briefed you on the current data, we would like to show you the safety preparations that are taking place to prepare our district for when it is safe to reopen for in-person instruction. At this time, I would like Tracy Golden to cover the next few slides. Tracy?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and review some of the safety preparations. Many have already been done, and they are also ongoing. So, we will definitely be ready for when we do return in person. Next slide. Each of our schools created school-specific plans and took into account the district policy on safety and COVID-19 protocols, and then turn that into a school-specific plan. They spent the month of November communicating that plan to both staff members and their families, and making sure that everybody gets all that information. It kind of took a couple weeks to do because there is a lot of information to give, but they have completed that process. Next slide. We also have created a COVID-19 reporting dashboard. This is ready to go, but will be launched on our website when we return to in-person learning. So this will record the number of positive student cases and positive staff cases by location. And so when we do return to in-person learning, this will be available for the public on our district website. Next slide. We also want to review that we are supporting our community in partnering with the Orange County Healthcare Agency and the Latino Health Access to have community testing sites here at our schools in the district. It does rotate to different schools, but the information is all on our website, so anybody can go and get tested at any of these schools. Next slide. We also are very happy to partner with the Orange County Healthcare Agency to provide free testing for our employees. This is a free service that we are using through the state's OptumServe traveling team, and this is located at the Key site. It started this week, and any of our employees are encouraged to go and get tested, whether or not they have symptoms, whether or not they've been in contact with anyone. And you can see Board Member Ruelas, Dr. Downing, myself with our testing selfies went and got tested this week. So we are offering that to all of our employees. Next slide. Just a really quick update on what we're doing at the school sites to get ready for in-person learning. Next slide. So in the process or already installed, we've got the air filtration units that we are doing in every office building, every classroom in our district. Combinations of air purifiers or 4-ply filters, depending on the air conditioning system that's going on. Also, the Remy Halo LED systems are being installed right now. We also have delivered the student desk guard, the teacher desk guards, and those movable instructional guards to the site, and they are currently being set up and distributed at the school sites right now. Next slide. Also, just a reminder that we are providing PPE for our students. Every student will get 5 cloth masks. They will also get a Chromebook case, containers with their own supplies to have at home. Those are to eliminate any sharing of equipment. So the Chromebook case will be for them to take their device to and from school. They will not be sharing with another student in their class. Disposable masks will be available in all classrooms in case anyone needs them. And of course, they'll also have the desk guard at their desk. Next slide. This says coming in December. It's actually happening right now. Schools are currently either next week or possibly the week after will be doing grab and goes for students, and families can come and get a set of child size cloth masks for their students to wear during not the break and anytime at home. And they will also be given supplies that they need for instructional materials. Next slide. And then also we are providing our staff members with their own PPE. They will be given kind of an employee care package that has all of these items in it so that they each are armed with what they need to be safe. Next slide. And then I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Downey.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So board member, this slide shows our planned return to in-person learning, which was scheduled to begin on January 11th. with our TK through 6 SDC students, our TKK students, and our pre-K students returning. And the next week on January 19th, our 1st through 6th grade students returning for blended learning. Next slide. As you are aware, the blueprint for a safer economy is California's COVID-19 umbrella. Next slide. So as a reminder, on November 16th, Governor Newsom announced that he was exercising an emergency brake to address the spread of COVID-19. With this action, the state moved 28 counties, including Orange County, back into Tier 1. And per the Orange County Healthcare Agency, schools that have not reopened for in-person instruction have to remain in distance learning until further notice. This applies to the Anaheim Elementary School District. Next slide. And board members, given the spiking COVID-19 data, the fact that our county has reverted a step down to the lowest tier, and given the fact that by all reports, the Thanksgiving spread data is just starting to be integrated into the daily reports. We haven't even seen the full impact of Thanksgiving yet in terms of the COVID-19 data reporting. We are recommending a different planned reopening with March 8th through 11th, opening our schools, having staff return optionally. On March 12th, having our staff members go to campuses, receive additional training on safety protocols. And then on March 15th, having our preschool, pre-K through 6 SDC students and TKK students return for in-person instruction. And March 22nd, having our 1st through 6th grade students return for blended learning. Given the increase in COVID-19 data, this option is recommended for the continued safety of our stakeholders. And on the next slide, when we presented this option to our SRAC participants and asked them to weigh in, are you in support of the district recommendation? As you can see, 95.7 of the 115 responses were a yes, and 4.3 were a no. An overwhelming majority of our participants understand, again, the current data, the trend data that we're seeing, and our responsibility as a district to do everything possible and to prioritize safety. Next slide, please. So board members, this evening, we are recommending your support of the revised reopening schedule. And pending your approval, again, we understand that this timeline is subject to change. Orange County remains in the purple tier, and we will continue to monitor data. We will continue to provide updates to you at our board meetings as part of this process. But this evening, we are requesting your support for the recommended timeline to reopen our schools and moving from January to March. Next slide. And board members, we'd like to open it up to you for any questions, and we are ready to respond.
All right. Now, real quick, great job, everyone, in preparation with all the preparations. But I just have a quick question for Tracy. When is the projected? When are the REMI Halo systems projected to be installed?
I'm actually going to pass this off to Jesse and let him answer that. Yeah.
The installation started about 2 weeks ago. So
Okay.
they've been installed in about 4 schools.
Okay, so it's already in the process.
Yes.
Thank you. And great job, everyone, with all the preparation. Wow. Board members, questions at this time?
I have one.
All right, Trustee Phil.
I know this will be a discussion that we will also probably have to have a bit later, but I'm just wondering if we're gearing up to have that conversation or what it's going to look like with a vaccine that's coming out, and that conversation being, well, we might have half of our students and faculty take it, and we might have some that won't. So I just kind of wondered what the conversation is going to be around, if we're going to have that conversation, sort of addressing what that's going to look like if we go forward, but we're still kind of in a tough position that there could be several people that aren't vaccinated, and we have, thousands of people that we're talking about in our district. So maybe there isn't an answer to that right now, but I haven't really heard any conversation around that yet. So I'm just kind of wondering, we're going to get there, right?
Yes. As we receive more information on the distribution plan, additionally, it is my understanding at this time, there is not an approved vaccine for students. So that would be part of our discussion as well. But from our understanding, they are sending some of the initial vaccines to Orange County, as they are across the United States. And more information will be provided as soon as it is received. That will be something that once we have that information, we are happy to integrate into our ongoing presentations to keep the board and our stakeholders updated on that. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions?
Not a question, just more or less a comment. First off, Trustee Philbeck, that was a great question. Honestly, that's been like a topic of conversation with my family. We've been talking about it in the sense of like, what is that going to look like for our employees? Like, is that going to be mandatory? Is that going to be mandatory for students, et cetera? Because we've also experienced the whole issue of like the no vaccine, et cetera, situations that we've had based on our policy. So that's a very interesting question. And I'm glad you posed that right now, especially something to definitely think about. My comments include the following. I just want to say that I think that the care packages that we're delivering out to the students are awesome for over winter break and very preventative in nature, like in the sense of keeping themselves safe. I also want to say that the care packages to the teachers are awesome. Lots of cool swag there. So that's exciting. I think that it really illustrates where we as a district are coming from in the sense of making sure that our employees, as well as the students, are safe, and that's our number one priority. And I think that, like I said, even though it's superficial in the sense of like, yeah, it's an item, etc., those items are really going to help you, and so I just want to say kudos to the district for putting that together. That's really cool stuff. And then I just want to also comment lastly on the whole testing as a whole that we had at Key. As Tracy mentioned, I attended that along with Dr. Downing and Tracy, and it was very, very smooth. Okay. The testing that they have, I participated in a few of them and have been tested a couple times for different reasons. But I haven't done the saliva one, the take-home kit or anything like that, but the ones I've had have been the ones where they put the swab in your throat as well as really pretty far up your nose, to the point where my eyes water. This one was not the case at all. It was more less intrusive and just around your nostrils. I was thankful that I have a big nose, so they didn't have a problem there. And they just went ahead and literally, it was kind of ticklish, So I went from the other ones where I'm like crying to this time where I was kind of giggling the entire time they were doing it. The guy was like, "Are you okay?" But it was very quick, and literally, it only took honestly 5 minutes. I do want to say that it is heavy front loading in the sense of getting registered, getting your ID and all that stuff. So just be prepared for that and plan accordingly. It will take honestly maybe about like 10 minutes beforehand getting all that information ready. But kudos to the testing site, and I really encourage all of our faculty and staff to please go and get tested, please.
Thank you.
All right. Any other board questions or comments at this time? Note we will also be allowed a discussion with item 4B. Board members? All right. Hearing none, going to 4B. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the recommendations from the School Reopening Advisory Committee on the safe school reopening in line with the current COVID-19 data for Anaheim. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Relis.
So moved by Trustee Ruelas. Can I get a second?
Second, Lopez.
Seconded by Trustee Lopez. Discussion. All right. Go ahead, Trustee Alvarez.
Although it's already been covered, I just wanted to clarify for our employees and our stakeholders and our families that this is a decision that we're making based on the data we have now, and that we will for sure be looking at the numbers if they increase or decrease to maybe look at and decide whether we need to adjust the date further back. And that makes me comfortable with what we're discussing. And I just want to make sure our listeners and our families know that they feel like we are making decisions in their best interest.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarez. Anything else to discuss? All right. Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas?
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck?
Aye.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Moving on to 4C, the 2020-2021 first interim budget and LCFF budget overview for parents. Jesse Chavarria, our Assistant Superintendent of Admin Services. Also, Matthew Slusser, Director of Fiscal and Administrative Services.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. This evening, Matt Slusser, our Director of Fiscal Services, and I are presenting for your approval both the first interim report and the LCFF budget overview for parents. I will go over the first interim report and answer any questions you may have. And after the questions, Matt will present the LCFF budget overview for parents. Completing the first interim report is quite a labor-intensive task that requires extensive collaboration of many district stakeholders. I want to acknowledge Priscilla Martinez, Director of Business Services, as well as Matt Slusser, Director of Fiscal Services, and their respective department team members for their outstanding work in getting all of the necessary information for this report. Next slide, please. The fiscal solvency of the district is of the utmost importance, and the board has acknowledged this belief through the adoption of the Fiscal Stability Board Goals. I want to draw attention to the board's goal 1 because of point A. If we look at point A, of this goal is the utmost importance because it states the fiscal resources will be efficiently allocated to support student learning. But in order to have enough resources to benefit the education experience of our students, we must make sure to pay attention to points C and D, which talk about minimizing our deficit spending and maintaining legal required reserves. In addition, we must monitor staffing, enrollment, revenues, and expenditures. Tonight's first interim report reflects the board's fiscal stability commitment. Next slide, please. So what is the first interim report? It is a budget update that reflects all known revenues and expenditures from July 1st through October 31st of the current fiscal year. Based on this information, the budget is updated with current projections as to how the district will reoperate the rest of the fiscal year. A second budget update is presented to the board in March in the form of the second interim report. Next slide. So first interim assumptions. So of course, some assumptions have to be made when we put the first interim together for you. So these assumptions are ADA funding of 15,579 students. Of course, LCFF is fully funded. The suspension of the cost of living adjustment, we were expected to get about 2.43%, which would have been an additional $4 million, but that was suspended. STIRS rate of 16.15%, a PERS rate of 20.7%, and lottery funding of $150 per ADA unrestricted and $49 restricted. Next slide, please. So typically we present to you a table with the different revenue, and then we talk about the variances. This time around, I want to kind of preview those variances before presenting the table for you. So in terms of revenue changes since budget adoption, in regards to LCFF revenue, you will see that the material change is not that significant. In terms of federal revenue, we did get one-time CARES funding. In other state revenue, we also got one-time funding to offset some of the learning loss mitigation from the state, as well as early education expansion grant. And in regards to local revenue, we did get some OC EDI grant funds, as well as the K-12 Strong Workforce and the TUPIP program. Next slide. So here are our revenues based on our first interim. Based on adopted budget, the LCFF, we're expecting $184.1 million. At first interim, we're recognizing $183.8 million, a difference there of $264,000. In terms of federal revenue, we were at adopted budget, it was stated $18.4 million. First interim is $38.3 million. Like it was mentioned, it's mostly one-time funding with the CARES funds. So a difference there of about $20 million. In terms of state revenue, at adopted budget, $18.6 million. First interim, $20.8 million. So a difference there of $2.1 million. And like it was mentioned, one-time funds to support the learning loss mitigation work. And in terms of local revenue, we adopted budget $1.6 million. First interim is 1.8, a difference there of about $150,000. So revenue adopted budget was presented at $223.4 million. First interim is we're recognizing $245.4 million, a difference of $21.9 million. And the majority of that is, like it was mentioned, one-time funds through the CARES funding. Next slide. So this graph here represents those revenues based on each of the revenue sources. It's based on a percentage here, is reflected as a percentage over the overall revenue. So as you can see, the bulk of our revenue comes in the form of the LCFF, followed by federal, state, and our local revenue is a little bit of close to 1%. Next slide. So some expenditure changes since the budget was adopted are one, salaries and benefits. We did add teaching positions for our online academy. In terms of classified positions, we find that our 3-hour instruction assistance positions, we have a high turnover, which kind of doesn't benefit our students. So we shifted those positions to be 6-hour positions, but of course, those come with additional expenditures in terms of the benefits. As well as the board took action last month and approved the safety assistant positions, which will be 6-hour positions, which were required benefits for those positions as well. And then looking at books and supplies, we had a large increase in expenditures, but those expenditures are related to distance learning, supporting distance learning, as well as preparing ourselves for the potential returning to in-person instruction. And under services and other operating costs, the same thing. Additional licensing, internet services, and other contracts were entered to support distance learning. And under capital outlay and other outgoing, we did replace some equipment in M&O operations. Next slide. So the table here reflects those variances that were just presented. So certificated salaries, There's a difference there of $2 million. In terms of classified salaries, we actually have in first interim a reduction of $1.2 million. In regards to benefits, we did see an increase of $6.5 million from the adopted budget. Our supplies, like it was mentioned, an increase of $18.5 million in terms of what we had budgeted and projected. Once again, mainly due to the distance learning and preparing our schools for reopening. Services, a difference there of $2.4 million, like it was mentioned, to support our distance learning. In capital outlay, $400,000, that's the M&O equipment that was replaced. In other outgoing, $21,000, and then indirect about $5,000. So the difference from adopted budget to first interim is about $28.9 million in additional expenditures from what was adopted in July. Next slide. So the pie chart here, the graph reflects those same expenditures, but as a percentage. And as you can see, the largest pieces of the pie are our investment in our employees. So in terms of benefits, classified salaries, and certificated salaries. Next slide. So one of the things that we must do as part of the first interim report is to, create a multi-year projection. And these assumptions on the multi-year projection are based on the most current available information for us. So as you can see, the enrollment there that is reflected at 15,635, that's coming from the CBEDS report that took place in October, right? We're projecting a moderate decline in enrollment for the next 2 years of about 200 students each year. The big impact here that I want to draw attention to is that LCFF cost of living adjustment. Like it was mentioned, that was suspended for this year, and it's being suspended for the following year based on the assumptions we were given from the state. So the compounded impact of that suspension in 22-23, it's about $13 million in lost revenue. In terms of STRS and PERS, the state did pick up those increases this year, and they're picking up a big bulk of that increase next year as well. But in 22-23, we're looking at an increase in terms of expenditures of $3.6 million. Our step-in column usually runs us about $2 to $2.5 million each year. And as projected, their revenue for this year, $245.4 million. Next year, about $219.8 million, and in 22-23, $211.1 million in revenue. Next slide. So the summary projected totals for 2021, we're expecting revenue of $245.4 million, expenditures of $252.5 million. This is a negative difference of $7.1 million. We have a beginning fund balance of $37.6 million. So we're projecting an ending fund balance in 2021, ending with a fund balance of $30.5 million. Next slide. In 21-22, we're estimating revenue to be $219.8 million. We're estimating expenditures at $225.7 million. A negative difference there of $5.9 million. And we're projecting a beginning fund balance in 21-22 of $30.5 million. And we're projecting an ending fund balance of $24.6 million in 21-22. Next slide. In terms of 22-23, we're estimating our revenues to be $211.1 million. We're estimating expenditures of $215.6 million, a difference there of $4.5 million. And in terms of our beginning fund balance in 22-23, it looks like $24.6 million, and we're projecting an ending fund balance in 22-23 of $20 million. Next slide. Some future considerations for us that will be impacting our budget, of course, our enrollment projections, our rising pension obligations, like it was stated in a couple of previous slides. Textbook adoptions, usually textbook adoptions run us about $2.5 million to $4 million. The suspension of the COLA, like it was previously mentioned, the compounded effect, if everything stays as is, of $13 million. Of course, special education contribution, but very important as well, the current COVID-19 crisis and its impact on the state budget. Next slide. So in terms of the legal requirements, we do have to present to the board a recommendation in terms of our certification. The 3 types of certifications are listed there on the slide. The 2 bottom ones, qualified and negative, of course, have to do with the district may not or will be unable to meet its financial obligations. Tonight, we are recommending a positive certification, meaning that AESD will certify as positive for first interim 2021. Next slide. So what are the next steps? We will be having a budget advisory committee meeting on December 17th, where we'll go over the first interim and talk about our budget. Of course, the governor's preliminary budget comes out in January. And so that may change some of the assumptions that we have talked about. I know there's talks about that windfall that they are mentioning of additional taxes that were collected, about $50 billion in, going to schools. And I know there's conversation about, helping with the deferrals and maybe giving one-time monies to school districts. But we won't know that until then. But right now we're basing it upon what information that is known. And then we will bring to you the audit report that usually gets presented in January. And then we'll come with a new budget update for you in the form of the second interim report in March. Next slide. And I will open it up to any questions you may have regarding our first interim report.
The governor's proposed budget, that's January, Jesse?
The preliminary proposals are in January, and then he has his May revised in May.
Okay. All right, board members, do you have questions for Jesse? Thank you so much for that presentation. Board members, do you have any questions for Jesse at this time?
Thank you, Jesse. It was a great report, and I'm certainly grateful we're going to certify positive. So.
Okay, hearing no questions, I'm going to have Matt Buster, our Director of Fiscal Services, present to you the LCFF budget overview for parents. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chavarria. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Slusser. I'm Director of Fiscal and Administrative Services, and I'll be covering the LCFF budget overview for parents this evening. Next slide, please. So the LCFF budget overview for parents, some background on it. Senate Bill 98 and Senate Bill 820 for the 2021 fiscal year basically states that with the first interim report, the LCFF budget overview for parents is to be presented. So this will go with first interim, our budget proposal. And as of October 31st, it will go to OCDE in conjunction and be submitted with that. Regarding other items on the LCFF budget overview for parents are the projected revenue for AESD, as well as the federal CARES funding for AESD in 2021, the learning continuity plan budget in 2021, and then we'll take a step back and look at 1920 LCAP and our expenditures versus budget. Next slide, please. So if you look at the pie chart here to the left, it's roughly 245 million of our total funding that Mr. Chavarria just covered in the first interim report. And of that, roughly 10% is federal CARES funds that we received. And another big chunk, 75% of our operating budget is LCFF funds, approximately 183.9 million. So diving into the LCFF funding, it consists of 2 pieces. The larger portion, which is base funding, it is roughly $139 million. And then the supplemental and concentration funding is just shy of $44.8 million. Next slide, please. So with regards to the learning continuity plan, this is a change to the LCAP. What this is showing is what we are doing as a district to support the needs of distance learning, as well as preparing classrooms, really everything related to the pandemic, so that children can learn in a safe environment, and we will be ready, whether it's in-person or distance learning, to support those needs. So there's a little over 87 million budgeted total in the learning continuity plan. And of that, for high needs students, the budget is the same. Because 90% of our unduplicated count, it really requires on our end that we meet the needs of high needs students, which all students are high needs because of that high unduplicated percentage. If you were to look at another district with a lower unduplicated percentage, these two amounts would be different, but in our case, they're both the same. Next slide, please. So I just went over the 2021 items. We'll take a step back and look at 1920 and how we did with our LCAP plan. For a budget, we were around $121.7 million. We spent $122.6 million. So roughly $900,000 difference from what was budgeted to what was actually spent. And with this was used for supporting distance learning during the pandemic and making adjustments to make sure we are meeting the needs of students and staff. Next slide, please. All right, that sums up the LCFF budget overview for parents. I'll open up with any questions.
Oops, my microphone is off. Thank you so much, Matthew, for that presentation. Board members, at this time, do you have any questions for Matthew or comments?
I just want to say thank you and welcome officially to the team and joining us and presenting to us today. We're glad to have you on board.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Appreciate that.
What Juan said. That's what Juan said. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and go to 4D. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 first interim budget and LCFF budget overview for parents as presented at the December 9, 2020 board meeting. This report indicates a positive certification, indicating the district will meet its financial obligations for the current year and 2 subsequent years. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Alvarez.
So moved by Trustee Alvarez. Can I get a second?
Second, Ruelas.
Seconded by Trustee Ruelas. Discussion. Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas.
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Board Clerk Alvarez.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent calendar. Items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and are acted on by the board in one motion. There is no discussion of these items unless a member of the board, staff, or public requests specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. So at this time, board members, do you have anything to pull?
May I pull 1B, please?
All right, 1B on page 3. All right. It is recommended the Board of Education approve and ratify the following consent calendar items with the exception of 1B. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Ruelas.
So moved by Trustee Wells. Can I get a second?
Second, Lopez.
Go ahead. Give it to
Seconded by
Mark.
Trustee Lopez. Discussion. Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas.
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. All right, so let's look at 1A. B, conference attendance plus expenses, board only, virtual CSBA conference that's going to be on December 3 to 4, 2020, for $399 under Jackie Philbeck. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Relis.
By Trustee Ruelas. Can I get a second?
Second, Alvarez.
Seconded by Trustee Alvarez. Okay, let's go ahead and discuss this item.
Thank you. I'll make it brief. I felt that I should pull it out since it is on this agenda and we don't have any sort of board comments this time. Just that normally all of us would attend these conferences, and this year it was supposed to be in Anaheim, and it's for the California School Boards Association. But I did attend it because I am a delegate for Region 15. So it is a responsibility of mine to represent for that. And I will say that it was excellent. And I think I had 10 or 11 sessions and caucuses and, 2 full days. So we really did, there was a lot that came out of it. So I just felt that since it was on me that I should bring that forward, why I attended and maybe the other board members didn't. It was all virtual. But it is because I'm a delegate for Region 15. And thank you.
Wonderful. It's great to hear that. And Dr. Downing, do you think we could possibly get copies? I know in previous CSBAs, the board has been given copies on some of the presentations, or if that, or maybe maybe you could collaborate with Trustee Philbeck on that. I would like to see some updates with CSBA. And Trustee Philbeck, thank you so much for your additional service with the California School Boards Association. I really appreciate that. Anything else to discuss with this item?
Just following up, I'll work with Board Member Philbeck to access the presentations.
Thank you so much, Dr. Downing. Okay, anything else with regards to 1B? Hearing none, board roll call vote. Trustee Ruelas.
Aye.
Trustee Philbeck.
I don't have to abstain on this. I'm sorry. Do I? Okay, aye.
No.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Trustee Alvarez.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. All right. That's it. So I adjourn this meeting at approximately 6:56 p.m. Stay safe, everyone. Wear a mask and have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.